And I think what China has really done is showcase that there are vulnerabilities on both sides of the negotiating table, and that neither party benefits from playing their hand too hard, too aggressively going into these negotiations. The base case scenario for us is that yes, there's been some short-term volatility, but that's not going to persist. The more likely scenario is that we're going to find something middle of the road where we push forward the deadlines. We have some kind of detente. We don't expect that there's a big decoupling between the US and China, but we also don't think that there is a grand bargain deal that's going to happen anytime soon. What we've come to realize is at the end of the day, China has asserted its strength in these negotiations in a far better way than any of the other counterparties that the US has negotiated with. And it's kind of put the US off guard. And with that, it's kind of put markets slightly off guard because the playbook that has applied elsewhere hasn't worked for China and hasn't worked for the US.
Well, that's interesting. So you do not see a grand bargain or deal anytime soon, which means even if the two leaders go on to meet for another time, say next year at a formal sit-down summit, maybe in Beijing, I don't know, we're not going to see anything like a grand bargain or deal. So we're stuck with basically managing a situation where China is going to be able to continue saying, I got you on rare earths, and the U.S. can turn around and say, I got you on semiconductors. I mean, this whole idea of decoupling is losing a lot of adherence, right? Because, I mean, this is clearly, it's not a great marriage, but this is a situation where divorce is just not an option.
It's not an option. And even if you believe in this whole idea of reshoring and and this is a strategic initiative, those things take time and they require coordinated policy from the US. We haven't seen that yet. And without that, there is no alternative. The secretary has talked about the fact that there may be anti dumping measures put on. That doesn't change the fact that access is the big issue. It's not about pricing, it's about access. And until you find an alternative access to what you need, it's very difficult to negotiate from a power of strength. And that's why you're not going to see a grand bargain in our view. If we do see China giving in that regard, it's going to be a tit for tat. Fine, semiconductors have to be an issue. Fine, we have to talk about Taiwan. We have to talk about all these other measures, and the relationship has to be managed holistically, not simply based on one issue or one barrier of trade that the market wants to focus on, or that the U.S. administration wants to focus on.
Well, Jay, listen, let me push back on this a little bit gently here in terms of industrial policy. China's clearly trying to squeeze not just the U.S., but the rest of the world on rare earths, right? Because of their commanding position, not just in terms of extraction, but probably more importantly, processing. But we've seen the response already in terms of industrial policy, have we not? The Pentagon, very unusually, taking a stake in MP, right, and setting a floor price. So, to me, this whole floor price issue, and I think we heard Secretary Besson talking about moves to set a floor price for several other industries as well. This is important because this is the way that China exerts leverage over not just the U.S., but the rest of the world, right? Because any industry or any business, right, where China walks in the room, people like to joke, profits walk out simply because they are, bar none, they're always the cheapest producer unless you set a floor price.
That's correct, but that floor price leads to investment, which leads to capacity. And that investment requires a fundamental outlook of that floor price beyond just the terms of this administration. It has to be a long-term effort because refining capacity, those things are not a switch that you flip on and flip off so quickly. And if you want to have a consistent policy towards a strategic initiative to build this industry, it can't be an investment into one company. It can't be a floor price that only lasts for a certain period of time. It really has to be a coordinated policy at the government level and across governments, in fact, so that you really make a big, meaningful difference. And in the interim, what you are saying is you're creating a tax on the users of rare earths because the floor price is effectively also a tax.